in church, then you should be here because we are here at 1714 East 7th Street in Ybor City, where it all began, and you are about to jump into the rotation. Welcome back. We actually took a week off. We actually we taped the show a couple of days early, and then half a week. This guy takes off to Vegas to check out the trade show, which I hear was insanely cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really big. It's good to see, I've been, this industry is going fast for so long, and yeah, it just kind of it's not like it stopped, but it just took a weird blow or something, and now everything's just kind of back to normal. Going to Las Vegas, going to see all the companies out there at the Las Vegas Champs, and seeing that there's people still in this industry, is still being innovated. It's still going, man. It's awesome.
Woo! Yeah. I honestly, goodness, when we first got started on this trying to make this legal, I don't think I ever saw the business side of it coming up behind us like a giant groundswell. But it really has taken over and is now heading towards possible even commodity ship, where you're going to see this stuff being put into your Frosted Flakes. Well, maybe not the Frosted Flakes. That's kind of like a kid's thing. But the thing is, cannabis has definitely taken a life of its own in business wise in this country.
Well, it's cannabis brands now. I'm wearing a cookie shirt. Look, cookie shirt, right? Cookies is a cannabis by Burner. His marijuana, whether or not you like it or we want to call him big cannabis or whatever, but still, this brand that's being sold in clothing stores. Brand that's being sold you could this place called Flight Club in Miami that sells these urban sneakers. You can buy cookies. This is just it's part of our culture. There's people out there that are just there. It's possible that there's a cannabis brand that could be akin to Gucci at one point, and I think that's awesome.
Gucci cannabis.
Does
it come with loafers?
There could be a lady, a Karen at the mall, and that's my marijuana is better than yours. You call the manager.
Anyways, we forgot to actually introduce ourselves. This is how good we are on Sunday mornings. I am Gary Stein, your political director here at Suncoast Normal, and the Masters of Public Health. Out of the trio of us, over here to my right, your left, is Carlos Angel Armida, coming back fresh from Vegas at the Champs Show. And not here today is our executive director, Chris Cano, who I believe deported himself to Spain for his birthday. Being Cuban, wanted to go ahead and check out his roots. It's everybody in Tampa who calls Cuban folks Spanish folks. That's fine. I'm confused with that, but we're working on that. Now, we were getting to the fact that this is a whole crazy new industry. And I got to say that one thing that one of our other candidates who came on last week was Wenge Newton, is that we have to have a strong medical program. And that is quite true in the state of Florida, because that is how we got started here. We have to take care of having access to having this product to the patients. And yet everybody thinks it's already they call it a recreational market and an adult use market. If we don't have a solid medical cannabis market where we are getting access to this medicine to patients, then we are lost. But we're going to get into that later on. Anyways, the thing that we're starting up right now is the fact that here we are at the end of July, which is the beginning of the last month before the primary here in the state of Florida. And we are going to see some changes this year. We're going to see some changes in the state legislature. We're going to see some changes in the federal legislature. We're going to see in the executive branch changes, and we're hoping.
I'm scared. I really am. I don't think these are good changes, man.
Well, it depends on who you go out and vote for, and the whole thing is you need to know who you are voting for, and if you happen to be in the Orlando area, which is the area that is currently being taken care of by Stephanie Murphy, which is Congressional District 7. You'll see that Stephanie is not running this year. And so this is what is called an open seat. And we're going to wait and see who gets it. And the first thing that's going to happen, of course, is the primary on August the 23rd. And one of the primary candidates is our guest here today, Al Krullick. Al is a veteran of the political scene. I mean, we always say we don't want politicians in office, but then again, experience counts, doesn't it?
Are you asking me that? Yeah.
How's that for an unexpected segue?
Well, hi guys. Good morning. Look, my experience has been largely as a political operative in other people's campaigns for the last 38 years. But I also ran for Congress before myself against entrenched Republicans in red districts because nobody else had the gumption to do it and nobody gets a free pass. So my political experience so far as a candidate has been 0-3. Um, but this time I think may be very different. I think maybe the Republicans have overreached. We've got some angry women out there. We've got some sane Republicans. There's a couple of them. And if the Democrats come out, we can potentially keep their seat blue. And that's my job over the next couple of months. I intend to win the primary, and then I intend to take on whatever far right extremists the Republicans nominate for their candidate in November.
That's
But
a good point, man. That the Republicans have overreached. I know that I said that I was a little scared of what's going to happen. I'm honestly scared that Florida is going to turn into a primary like dark red state. You know what I mean?
well,
We've always been that purple, but
South Dakota.
yeah,
listen. When I talk to
Think South Dakota.
when I talk to people on the stump, they're terrified of the Republicans, what they're
Yeah.
doing. They're scared. You know.
yeah.
But concerning the war on drugs, look, you can see that I'm not a kid anymore. I've been doing this for a long time. The first time I ran for Congress was 26 years ago, and I was sanity of the war on drugs. Your other guest gets thrown in jail for 27 years. I mean, that's medieval. That's insane. The war on drugs has been such a disaster, such an enormous disaster for 80 years in this country, and it's always been based on racism, and it's always been based on classism. I'll tell you a couple of historical notes that people don't generally or relate to, but this is the kind of hypocrisy. When the war on drugs started, when the war on marijuana started back in the 1930s, Harry Anslinger was the guy who was picked by Hoover to run the department. And their excuse was, we got to arrest these people, especially Mexicans, because marijuana was going to make them violent, and they were going to rape our women and kill our children. Okay, so marijuana needed to be illegal because it made people violent. Go up about 30 years during the Red Scare in the 1950s, and the same Harry Anslinger says we have to keep marijuana illegal because it makes and ripe for a communist takeover. So either marijuana made you dangerous because you were going to get violent, dangerous because you were going to sit around and not do anything against the Red Menace. And meanwhile, lives, thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of lives are being ruined by this disastrous, insane policy. And I'll tell you one other story. I will never get out of my mind the sound of rubber gloves snapping on a wrist. Do you know why? Okay, as a young man, I traveled a lot.
Are we talking digital exams or what?
Yes, we are. So I'm driving across country, and I'm starting from, I think, Maine, going to California, and there was a point where I drove through Canada. So now I'm going back into the border, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Now at that time, I had a beard, I had long hair, I looked like the enemy. I looked like Richard Nixon's enemy. And Richard Nixon had the war on drugs was so prime for him. So I'm coming into the border and I get pulled over. And I'm thinking, naturally, I'm going to get pulled over. Look at the way I look. So these guys are starting to search my car. And there's no drugs in my car. I'd have to be stupid to do something like that. So I start joking with them. I say, by the way, I lost a contact lens. If you guys find it, let me know. Ha, 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 ha. Guy opens the glove compartment, reaches in and pulls out half a marijuana cigarette, a roach. He says, is this yours? I said, hell no. What kind of idiot do you think I am? Well, that was the beginning. Now I'm being pulled into the room. I'm being told to strip. I'm being told to bend over, and I
Jeez.
hear that snap of a glove on the hand, which I will never forget. I didn't find anything anywhere, especially where they were looking, and they just sent me on my way. And now that someone's going to go write in the book that they stopped one desperado and searched him because they've got another number. So it was all a joke. It's all a game, but it's a dangerous game. So when I started running for Congress 26 years ago, I was talking about the war on drugs when nobody else would touch the subject. No, the subject. It was too radical. But I was right then and I'm right now. The only difference is that the times have caught up with me. And hey, the Senate now wants to pass a law decriminalizing, making it legal, and hopefully taking off of Schedule One as a dangerous drug. You know,
Yeah,
and what the scuttlebutt is that the Biden administration, Biden is kind of, he's dancing on this because he's still worried about the Hunter Biden thing, and and that his son was a cocaine addict and marijuana is a gateway drug, yada 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 yada. But maybe sanity will prevail. Look at me, I'm 70 years old. I don't have a whole lot of time to keep dumping on this campaign. The law's got to change. We got more important things to do than to try and end this insanity. Although it's important, I realize that. So I still talk about it. It's not front page anymore
I
because other people are talking about it.
I gotta ask you. I agree that it's gonna happen soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully Biden's gonna do it. I don't know whether or not he will. But one thing that we've definitely learned here in Florida is that it's not just legalizing marijuana or legalizing medical marijuana. It's how it's implemented.
Right.
How do you see that being implemented? What do you feel is the most responsible way to implement legalization?
Oh, I just think it needs to be like alcohol. It needs to be legalized. It needs to be taxed.
Mhm.
It's safer than cigarettes. It's safer than alcohol. It's safer than all. Listen, if this country wants to deal with drugs, they got to start dealing with the opiates and the fentanyl killing people. No one dies from
Mhm.
marijuana. Nobody ever,
Mhm.
zero, ever died from marijuana. And the scare tactics that these people are still relying upon are just old and tired and worn out. They need to just stop the BS. Now, in terms of dealing with people who have drug problems, up the care that people need. Look, other countries, every country that's legalized marijuana has not found that use goes up. In fact, it generally goes down. You know, so there is no downside, none, to absolute legalization. None.
I
The
agree.
upside is the upside is tax revenue.
You know,
That's the upside.
you look and I might be a bit of a radical than most, but you look at the science behind this and a lot of the things that are scare people and okay, so a lot of the idea behind legalization, we got to make it 21 and up, can't get in the hands of kids, right? In many ways, I'm in a radical sense, I would say that it's better that kids have access to this. I really do feel that way. I think if kids are smoking marijuana, there's less chance of them doing heroin, you
Well,
know?
yeah, but the point too is if you prohibit something to a teenager, it's only going to enhance its allure. So this
Mhm.
is what's happened in other countries.
Absolutely.
The idea like, oh, if we legalize it, all the kids will get it. And the
Yeah.
exact opposite is look at Portugal. The exact opposite
Yeah.
has happened. Once you take away the prohibition, it's just
100%.
it's no longer like forbidden fruit. I mean, I don't
What was
understand
it
why
in
people in this country are so uninformed, so they that's the word. I was going to use other
yeah.
words, other epithets, but let's stick with uninformed.
Sometimes I say ignorant.
Yeah, that's such an
No,
ignorant thing to say, isn't it?
but in
I'll say,
you mentioned Portugal and Spain. You know, I
right.
remember seeing the culture in Spain and like seeing a 13-year-old in a bar in Spain. They weren't drinking or anything; they were just in there, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And the guys in Spain were like, "It's okay. He's allowed to be in here." As a matter of fact, he doesn't even want to drink any of this shit. He
You know, I wouldn't tell a teenager to do or not do anything, but if they ask my opinion, I would simply say alcohol is going to be more dangerous to your body, to your mind, and to your future than marijuana could be. But I'm not going to say go and drink or don't drink, go and smoke or don't smoke, go and, that's not my purview, But if they were going to ask me my opinion, I would tell them. I've told my kids the same thing, and then,
And yet, back in the 1500s, alcohol was used in "quote unquote" medicinal purposes, sometimes as anesthesia and other situations, but never quite made the pharmacopoeia, did it? But cannabis definitely did. Here's one quick question I wanted to ask you, because I know we're running short on your time, and I want to make certain you get a chance to say what you got to say. Is that here we have a product right now that is medically acceptable by almost 92% during as far as the last poll is concerned, and as far as for adult use, around 69%, which means this is a bipartisan issue. And yet, when it comes to politics, which started the prohibition in the first place, politics is almost always partisan. So the question
it is
comes
lately almost completely partisan.
exactly right. So in order for someone to actually try to make the program better, they have to work with people on a bipartisan basis. And yet we are so divisive right now. In fact, I got a quote from one of our constituents of our show over the weekend, asking about why we have all these far left unelectable people. Because in this guy's mind, if you're not endorsed by Trump, you have no reason to be in politics.
Yeah, I saw that. Hey, by the
Is
way, you got
Mark
my
Santiago somewhere?
website wrong. It's not the four. It's actually spelled FOR.
Oh,
KrulickForCongress.com.
Yeah, see what happens after you're a certain age, you start to actually spell out numbers instead of actually using the numbers.
Look,
This is
look.
like
I said
this
this.
isn't text messaging.
We had a forum the other night with all the candidates, and they were asking everyone if bipartisanship was good and possible, and all the Republicans just paid lip service, and they went, "Oh yeah, we got to work together." Blah 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 blah. They don't work together in Congress, and then I said something which, quite frankly, probably annoyed a lot of people. I said, until we put a stake in the heart of Trumpism and reject the big lie, partisanship is impossible. And that's what I believe. I prefer to work with other people, but you
I
can't work with people.
I
How do you
hear
do
you.
that? How do
I
you
hear you.
talk to them? How do you work with people who are in a cult?
What is that quote? I think it's Adams or some shit like that, where it's like logic to the ignorant is like administering medicine to the dead, something like that.
It sounds like one
Yeah.
of those atheist things.
Yeah. So
But
I
Al,
mean, if I'm elected, I'll work with anybody who's sane. But I don't know how to work with people who are not sane. That's something that beyond my ken at this point.
well, you're coming up on a primary, and you've got a couple of candidates up against you.
Yeah.
And what would you say to the audience out here is one of the main reasons why they should consider you for this position as opposed to your
Oh,
opponents?
why? Well, I'm the only person who has the depth of experience in politics and campaigning. I'm the only person who has a real long-standing and deep relationship to the district. Two of the candidates don't live here. They have people. They have no relationship to the towns and cities. They kind of jumped in the race. One of those candidates falsified her academic credentials, so she's kind of eliminated herself as a viable candidate. And the other candidate's a nice woman who doesn't seem to have much of an agenda. So I feel that I'm the most capable, I'm the most experienced, and I believe I've got the most rhetorical skills, because they're gonna nominate somebody who's well financed and polished. And I have to go up against that person and destroy all of their insane arguments. And I don't think the other candidates have the capacity to do that. They're good people. They're well intentioned. They don't have the skills. They don't have the relationship to the district. I encourage people to go look at my website, krulekforcongress.com. Check out my Facebook page. I've lived and worked and raised my family here for 30 years to prevent the Republicans from taking this seat. I'm the only one who can do it.
And we greatly appreciate you coming on the show. I guess we have some links for people to go ahead and contact you. It all possible?
Yep.
Yeah, I can put that in the chat.
Okay, good. Al, we thank you for coming on. Look forward to seeing you in the generals, maybe. And
definitely.
That would be a great race because we want to see
keep up the good fight, okay? Because it's not over. It's moving in the right direction, but it's not over. We have to get the marijuana legalized on a national level, and we've got to get these people out of jail, and we've got to expunge their criminal with their lives. This war on drugs has destroyed too many families, too many lives. It's got to end.
All right. Al, thank you very much. It's great to have you on, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
You betcha. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. Okay, that believe it or not is guest number 1 today. We actually have more people coming up, and coming up next is somebody you may have heard about in the news during the last 2 years, where you were told to stay home, and so many people did, and so many people didn't. How many times did you get COVID?
Twice.
Here I sit next to you, and I never caught it. Isn't that amazing? That is the reason, the difference between you and I. I have a history that has to do with public health. I don't believe that public health is tyranny, and I don't believe that spreading around misinformation necessarily is a good thing.
You think I think public health is tyranny? I think we should.
No, I don't think. No, you don't think that. you just don't want to pay attention to. No, you were out and about.
I'm just a stoner and forget to wear my mask. Man.
And you were in a necessary business, right?
Yeah,
exactly right. And one of the necessary businesses you have to have out there is informing the public. There's a difference between fear and awareness. A friend of mine from the CIA used to say. And that means basically those people who are afraid run away from the situation, and those people who are aware are able to figure out how to resolve the problem. And in this, I would like to introduce our next guest here, Ms. Rebecca Jones. I say Ms. I know you're a married lady. We saw your house in that viral video where they came over and knocked on your door because you dared go up against the governor and tell him that he wasn't quite putting out all the information that needed to be out. So they went ahead and knocked on your door. And now you've gone from being the avenger of COVID and actually getting the information out there to running against one of our favorite people here in the state of Florida in regards to Congressional District 1. Gates, for those people who are not aware, helped work on the first bill. Ended up being SB 1030, which started the cannabis industry here in the state of Florida. Then he went to Washington, D.C. and kind of went bonkers, as far as anybody could see. And to that end, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Rebecca Jones. Rebecca, how are you doing today?
Good. I am in my car with my entire family. So if it's a little loud or bumpy, let me just apologize ahead of time. But thank you guys for having me on.
Well, what's up to the fam? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but guys, you
okay.
be
there they are. Hi.
Hi.
But she will stop the car and turn the car around. So be careful. So I guess the first question I have is, what made you decide to do a 180 and go from being public servant to hoping to serve the public?
Well, I've always worked in public service. When I graduated from college, I could have just taken my education and worked for the oil and gas industry and made a lot of money. But that's not what I wanted. That's not how I was raised. So I went into public service to be a scientist. And I was planning on spending the rest of my life in public service until, COVID and the governor decided to intervene. And so I want to keep doing it. And I think I was for a long time trying to figure out what exactly that looked like. For a while, it was just doing the news, making sure that people had correct information. And I think that I've gotten a little frustrated with seeing that you could be on the news, 5 times a day all over the country. And unless you're one of the people who's making the laws, it can only do so much. And I grew up in this area that I'm running in, and I'm very unfortunately familiar with Matt Gaetz before this happened. So I heard about the sex trafficking investigation, and I thought, you know what, that's enough. I'm tired of waiting for somebody else to stand up and do the right thing. I'm going to do it myself. And, you know, if I don't win, then at least I tried. At least I did something different. But we're going to win. So it's going to work.
CD1 is interesting. I mean, all the time. I always say it's a one horse town and the horse is on meth. But it is a diverse district between
Breaking Bad for horses.
I mean, even just Pensacola versus Pensacola Beach, you can tell you've got a huge swing in regards to the different types of people that you have out that way. And I know Matt's father, Don, very interesting guy, good old country lawyer, country pharmacist. And yet he actually was very much into cannabis, though he wouldn't say so much. When Matt was growing up, that was one of the reasons that he actually got involved in this. So we are evolving. I think we can get past Matt, but we need to have somebody who gets it, who gets the fact that truth is kind of important.
Matt Gaetz, probably the second thing that pisses me off the most about him. Probably the first thing's the sex trafficking, but the second thing that pisses me off the most about him, I'm just gonna say one of the things that pisses me off about him, is honestly like how Gary introduced him. Like, we have to say that he played a hand in the cannabis industry here in Florida, and the truth is that he ruined it. He destroyed it. You know what I mean? He made it possible for this system to be this oligopoly. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Oligopoly, right? I swear I'm an MBA. he made it possible for this oligopoly, and he made it possible to like take small business out of the cannabis industry. I really the fact that sometimes the rhetoric goes in his favor in this way, and I really would like what you would do to kind of like correct that.
Well, I think first of all, we need to be legalizing marijuana for recreational use nationwide and allow people to grow it themselves, and certainly allow them to have small businesses to do it. Yeah, I know that Matt Gaetz has tried to create this image of himself that he's so pro marijuana, but he was only ever interested in controlling the licenses that were issued to make sure they only went into a handful of people that he was politically or financially connected with. So he was hardly a champion of marijuana, although I will say being pro marijuana in any sense is an improvement over a lot of the conservatives that we have. Still, this has been a fight that we've been in since they made it illegal. It's as ridiculous as prohibition was when they made a constitutional amendment for it. It's well past time. You know, we're finally looking to take it off the Schedule 1 drugs list, but that's not enough. We need to be making it legal nationwide. It would completely reimagine our entire prison system, our entire judicial system. I mean, think of all of the people who have records that could be expunged for something as simple as possession or, you know, distribution of small amounts of marijuana that are now barred from all kinds of activities, from jobs, from background checks, when it was not wasn't a harmful crime. There's a lot that we could do that would completely revolutionize how we view the war on, you know, drugs and personal use. And so I'm absolutely in favor of that all the way.
Now, you and I have a lot of background things in common. I worked for the Centers for Disease Control for a good portion of 2 decades, helped to create CDC Wonder and the VAERS and things of that sort. So I was really dismayed when I saw that one of the big pushes in politics is to disseminate. And that's actually one of the reasons that we have the cannabis program as we are right now, because misinformation was spread back in the turn of the century and into 1937 and again in 1970 when the Controlled Substance Act, and is all basically based on information which was not verifiable. And science is repeatable, verifiable information. And so and any kind of law that is actually based on misinformation eventually will become legitimate if they say it long enough and people forget the fact that it was illegitimate in the first place. And that's what I was concerned about in regard to COVID, that if people actually believed every single thing that came out as far as misinformation is concerned, we would go down the wrong path, and this pandemic would be endemic forever. essentially. And
Well,
that is kind of what we dealt with.
It's been a while. I mean, I'm probably just more eager than most to have that chapter of my life closed. I've caught COVID twice. I got it in January of 21, and actually just a few weeks ago at Leadership Blue in Tampa, which ended up being a super spreader event. You know, I'm more prepared than anybody to get over it and for that chapter to be closed, but that's not what people like Ron DeSantis wanted. And that is why we continue to struggle as much as we do. And of course, now we're seeing this anti-vaccine movement that had existed but was mostly fringe and slowly gaining ground explode. And you know, I'm sure you've heard recently that monkeypox is at a large risk right now to become a pandemic. And they've been warning about it for about 16 years now. I think it was 16 years ago. They said if this man is to find a pocket of people who are not inoculated against smallpox, this could be a pandemic. And it happened. And just so anybody's listening know, monkeypox is much more similar to smallpox than it is chickenpox. They're not like chickenpox, so please don't confuse those. That's not the same thing. It's just pox.
Well, for those people who go around checking out people's shoulders during the summer when people are wearing sleeveless things, those people who have a little circle on their shoulder are the ones that had the smallpox vaccine back in the 60s and 70s. Thing. I was part of the smallpox eradication team, so I knew exactly how we can actually end something. And I know that the fact that medical tyranny is not really a thing.
Can you still get monkeypox if you smoke weed?
Okay. Monkeypox is not spread by casual contact.
Hold on, because I know that you can't get COVID.
It depends on what you do with your pre-rolls, I suppose.
I know you can't get COVID if you smoke weed. So can you get smallpox if you smoke weed?
I'm not sure that first statement is true, so I would have no scientific foundation for the second one to be able to say.
Wait, I don't know what science journals you guys are reading, but I saw on Facebook.
Oh, well, if Facebook says it, then it must be true.
Yes. I actually heard that monkeypox, according to the folks on YouTube, actually was spread by the original group called the Monkeys. They were the first ones.
Yeah,
that's why it was named that.
I've been smoking weed since I was 17. I've never been sick.
Well, I'm sure those two things are causal, right? No, the monkeypox originated from I think it was the Democratic Republic of Congo, and so now it's in the United States. It's in Florida. My sister's actually an ER nurse in South Mississippi, and she might have it. I found that out yesterday. So it's spreading quickly, and it's going to be another thing that hopefully it's not nearly as lethal as COVID was, but it's not going to be fun either. And, you know, we now have made our country almost anti-medicine, which is a real shame because we're a place where some of the most advanced scientific, you know, and medical innovations are from. And just listen to your doctors, people. They're trying to keep you alive. That would be my advice.
Now, of course, we have our Surgeon General here in the state of Florida, who was a doctor that stood in front of the Supreme Court and said that you need to go ahead and use malaria medication to go ahead and get rid of COVID. So, we call
him Dr. Demon Seaman. So, you know, he was at that panel of supposedly frontline responders, even though he's never worked in a hospital, he's never been a licensed physician. They all pretty much were not first responders for COVID. And he's there when this woman starts going off about how the vaccine has demon sperm in it, and it was, you know, going to do all these horrible things to women in their souls. And he's sitting there nodding. And so, yeah, we call him Dr. Demon Seaman.
Boy. And of course, with all due respect to Dr. Laudavo, because he is our Surgeon General, we have to give him a certain amount of respect. And he does have a huge job. But anything he says that's wrong can have immense butterfly effects kind of situations. Like, for instance, somebody whispered in DeSantis' ear last week that the more boosted you get, the more chance you have of getting COVID.
The more what?
the more boosted you get, the more chance you have of getting COVID. They were using a CDC graphic which showed that people who were boosted have a slightly higher degree of COVID. However, that may be behavioral as opposed to actual viral, because of the fact that people who are
The
boosted
people who
oftentimes
get
take more
boosted
chances.
are more, well, it's also not that. It's that and the fact that the people who get boosted are inherently more COVID conscious and are more likely to get themselves tested if they start to come down with symptoms versus those who don't believe in vaccines, don't believe COVID's real, and won't go to a clinic and actually take a test. There's a huge concern right now that we're massively underreporting because home tests pretty much can tell you with a high level of accuracy whether or not you're positive. I mean, when my family caught it a few weeks ago, I was the only one who went to a clinic and actually got tested. So only one of the four of us counted. But yeah, if you're, it's also a psychological thing. If you went and got all the boosters and everything, you're more likely to get tested if you actually got sick.
Yeah.
And of course, the situation was he totally ignored the line on the graphic, which showed that anybody who is not vaccinated has a huge amount of cannabis. Wrong topic. as a huge amount of COVID, and so therefore, just ignoring that one line, that slight propaganda by omission, automatically makes it look as if that particular fact is real. Don't get boosted because you'll get COVID is totally wrong. It's just a matter of cherry picking your facts and switching things around, and that is how cannabis became.
Yeah, Rebecca, like
legal in this country.
I'm seeing a theme here in this entire conversation. It's just like the country's not trusting science anymore. Yeah, that's just
They
what it
really
is.
should just not be trusting, people like DeSantis.
Well,
are not
I
scientists.
agree, and quite honestly, like both the mission of this organization and the whole COVID pandemic, it lays in the same. There's misinformation out there, spread for political gain, right? That victimize cannabis users, right, or victimizes people that are ending up with COVID, right? I really would like to hear your thought on how we can get back to a science-based world. Like, I really don't understand how we got here in the first place, first off, because like, I mean, most of the country just does not trust. You bring up that a scientist came up with it, right? And they're like, it's false. My preacher needs to, I don't know what it I don't want to I tend to pick on religious people quite a bit. I don't want to pick on religious people right now. The fact is that there's people out there that are not trusting scientists. They're trusting whatever it is, marketing, religion, whatever it is, right? How do we get back to a science-based way of thought? She's gone. And she's back.
Okay. Sorry.
Did you hear me?
Damn you, DeSantis.
I heard your question. What I was saying, if you go back to like tobacco wars back in the 40s and 50s, they were paying, doctors to do research that actually said that cigarettes were good for you. When I was growing up in the 90s, I was told that one joint is 20 cigarettes, for health. And it's always been there.
I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. The difference between now and then is that there was this kind of understanding within the media that we did not give credence to things that were patently false. And so they fell into some of those traps, obviously, but it was not commonplace to see people spreading misinformation all over. CNN Jake Tapper's show is one of the people that's most guilty of that, or trying to present two views that are not balanced as equal parts, the going out of your way to be contrarian. There was a kind of buffer zone, and partly the internet is to blame with that, because anybody can, start a website and then put craziness on it and, tell people, oh, look at all these like papers that prove that, that this vaccine is dangerous and blah, 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 even though it's not true. But it is a large part is the media. I mean, when schools reopened, we had people on CNN telling people that kids couldn't get COVID, which is false, or that, that schools were somehow a magical barrier to COVID and that teachers and staff would not get sick and die left and right, which was false. They did. And that it wouldn't exacerbate, community spread, which it did. But these people were not just allowed airtime, they were promoted. They were, doing shows left and right. We had people who became staples for this kinds of misinformation that would just do the circuit. And that's something to me that's most egregious, that the media's mishandling of. They don't understand how to handle this kind of information, not realizing that every time they cover one of these things, they're just further propagating this misinformation. And that's one of the biggest problems. It's probably the one that's easiest to fix too, because if we all call the media to stop doing it and we refuse to, watch Jake Tapper or any of those other shows that do it, especially Fox, obviously, then it would stop. But we don't.
Yeah, and of course, now where you live right now, Escambia, Santa Rosa County, big Second Amendment folks out that way.
Yep.
I think was it Gates or was it Trump who said that up in Pensacola, up in the Panhandle, if anybody disagreed with you, you could always shoot them. That only happens over in the Panhandle.
I'm not sure who said that, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think that was that far off.
It got a big laugh out of the audience, and that made me very uneasy because they were agreeing with him at the time.
Well, it's strange right now for me, I think, because there's actually an FBI manhunt underway for someone who threatened to kill me and my family about a week and a half ago from my district, who called our cell phones, didn't block his number, didn't even try to hide who he was. And the FBI has been looking for him since Thursday, the 21st. So, yeah, it's a little more serious right now. I mean, I like brevity and, levity as much as the next person, but there's a difference between, being a pro-Second Amendment place and being a pro-violence place. And I don't think we're a pro-violence place. I think that people understand that they are entitled to certain rights, but that does not give them license to be violent animals. I think that's a common misconception about people. But then there are a handful of people that are dangerous. And this was a Matt Gaetz supporter who repeatedly told me he was a Matt Gaetz supporter when he texted me over 3 days, telling me that women don't belong in office because we're too emotional and have too many personalities. The guy who threatened to kill my family said that we're too emotional and have too many personalities. But it's not always necessarily tied to the same thing, and I don't want to kind of bash on people that technically, they have those rights. That's the Second Amendment. It exists in the Constitution, and make them seem like everybody up here is crazy and a redneck. And I mean, I grew up in South Mississippi in a place that's a hell of a lot more redneck than this area. And they're not inherently violent people either. They're not going to shoot people for disagreeing with them. But it is also a very serious risk that as a candidate I have to deal with. And right now, more than I have in the past. Which says a lot because I have an entire Twitter troll army dedicated to harassing anybody who says my name 24/7. Strange world.
Wow. And yet you have to be able to work with the GOP as you're moving forward if you're going to have any.
Rebecca, let me just say at the beginning, I thought you were cool. Now I think you're a badass.
Wow,
to be able to stare some shit like that in the face.
You handed out the badass badge without telling me? Wow, that's cool.
Like to stare some shit like that in the face and to keep on going and keep standing for what you're standing for. Good job. Good job.
Thanks.
Now, how do you intend on handling the issue in regards to bipartisanship? I mean, right now you are in a fairly red district. There's no question about that. In order to get past that, you have to find folks who are willing to stride that line and realize that if you are identified strictly by your political party, then you have identity crisis.
Yes,
essentially, that you have to be able to think. And we are thinking very in myopic terms right now in both the left and the right, and that to me is concerning because you can't get things done if you want to be totally one-sided.
Correct. And I've never been a totally one-sided person. Most people got to know me as a scientist who was objective and just wanted them to have information, not as a political figure. As much as, DeSantis loved to politicize me, I never spoke out about politics the entire time I was in my role as a science advocate. That was not until he, ordered police to raid my home gunpoint without a warrant.
Wait, what happened? I didn't know
but
that happened.
Okay. Yeah, that was a viral video.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll show it to you later on.
Oh,
I think it's out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's out there. Yeah, it's out there. But yeah, that's when you thought I was a badass for getting threatened to be killed. You should go look at the video under my head and the gun pointed at my kids. Then you'll really like me. But it's about fairness and trying to be honest with people, and that's not something that we've had in a lot of politics. Certainly not something we've had from Matt Gaetz. People who don't exploit each other or try to turn their neighbors against each other and look, say, here, these are the laws that we have to follow them. If we need to change one, then we change one. If we're coming short, if the government is failing to do something, then we need to make up for that, like the PACT Act, which for my district is incredibly important. It was basically the healthcare funding bill for people who are exposed to toxic substances in the military. If somebody loses a limb in the military, then they get $4,560 a month every single month for the rest of their life. But if they acquire, a rare type of cancer from burn pits or, God forbid, Agent Orange exposure, they were paid $3,200 total for their life. And so we don't treat these kind of unseen illnesses the way that we do seen illnesses. And that also goes into PTSD and, suicide and TBIs and other things. And this bill was over a decade in the making, and the GOP shut it down. And it's like that kind of stuff. It's like, look, we made promises, we're going to keep them. That's it. We need infrastructure. We need to pay our teachers. We need to take care of these basic things that affect our actual day-to-day lives and stop arguing about things that are never going to change. And that's kind of how we've been able to do this. Is like, people get very upset sometimes to start asking me about abortion. And I try to, understand where they're coming from, but I'm at the same time saying, look, does this impact you on your drive to work? Like, at the end of the month, can you afford to pay all of your bills, and how will changing that help you? And what is the thing that actually impacts your everyday life that I can help you with? And that's what public service is supposed to be. And that's what I'm trying to bring it back to.
Great. I mean, I'm an independent. People know that I'm kind of left leaning, but I want to make certain that I have the ability to go ahead and go after both sides equally to make certain that everybody's doing their jobs, because your political party doesn't necessarily make you right.
No, it does not. No, it does not. Believe me, I could say that, for every political party, that not everybody who runs with your party, whichever one it is a saint. I know that politics is nasty, and there is something to be said about what it would be like if we didn't have parties and people could just run as individuals, and you had to learn about who they were and what they stand for and what they're going to fight for. But the reality is that's not America right now, and we have to deal with the system that we're in until we can make it better. I
mean, Mississippi, where you grew up. By the way, shout out to Barb and Picayune. I'm still thinking about you. we have friends in all the states around here.
I had my wedding cake made in Picayune. Thank you very much. I did. They have an amazing bakery right off the highway. I forget what it's called, but that's where I had my wedding cake. I got married in Slidell. I grew up in South Mississippi, so that's my back, yard.
Don't tell me it was red velvet.
I'm sorry?
Was it a red velvet cake?
No, they were amazing. I actually had cupcakes. They had magnolias on the top of them. It was beautiful.
Very cool.
I got married in a bayou in South Louisiana, so
And Mississippi, in our world, is interesting in regards that they actually passed a ballot initiative to go ahead and legalize cannabis, and yet the governor shut it down, and the legislator shut it down.
Oh, Tater?
Yeah.
Governor Tater? Mississippi, where I grew up, we're used to being at the bottom of the list for pretty much everything. Healthcare, economics, education, wealth, poverty, pretty much if there's a stat out there, we're at the bottom. But I will say this. When I started tracking schools, COVID-19 in schools nationwide with Google, we were the only people who apparently cared enough to do it. Mississippi was the first state in the entire country that started reporting the number of student and staff cases in their schools for every single district in their state. It's the only time I've been like, hey, we were at the first of something that was really good. So that's the only credit I'll ever give Tater, but he deserves that one.
David Banner is also a pretty cool rare. Like there's some cool stuff out of there.
Absolutely, and I have a lot of love for Mississippi. I spent a lot of time in New Orleans and to escape to Louisiana to find some sanity. Louisiana and Picayune, but that's the way it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I
but
grew up in an area of Mississippi that was more Louisiana, more Cajun than Dixie, we
yeah,
say. So
and
it's all right.
sometimes Mississippi was just a segue to Dauphin Island for us. We just have to go past it to get to where else we wanted to go. But we want to see you in Congress. We want to see you successful. What are the major points in your platform right now moving forward?
Well, a return to evidence-based decision making would be fantastic. So trying to use science, to use data in the most impartial manner to examine issues before we make decisions or make laws on them. We don't do that enough. We don't require studies to see what the impact of something might be on economics or health or the environment. We need to start really truly assessing that in a nonpartisan way, not with think tanks that obviously have an agenda. Obviously, we have a lot of issues with most people right now can't afford their bills, and that's the reality. Nobody wants to say it, but our country, especially my state, is becoming unaffordable. Rent is increasing, inflation's hurting a lot of families. Working class families and Americans are carrying the brunt of the tax burden that keeps our country going, and we need to change that. We need to lower taxes for working Americans and middle class families and the working poor, because right now it's too high. The fact that a teacher who makes 40 pays about the same tax rate as somebody like, and we need to make sure that we're investing in our population and public education, the things that used to define American life. That is what we're fighting for. I didn't grow up rich. Like I said, South Mississippi. My dad's a truck driver. So I know what it's like to struggle every single month just to make ends meet. When you don't buy anything, you don't do anything, you don't have new cars, you don't go on vacation. And it feels like you can't breathe all the time. And I think America really just needs a break. And I think people who keep this country running need to be able to breathe again. And so that's what we're trying to do.
And what would you say to the folks over on the GOP who are really confused as to who to vote for and who might be interested in after the primary, of course, jumping party lines if they feel it's necessary?
That's a harder one.
Yeah, sorry, that's a hard ball, but
No,
it's a necessary evil.
my some of my best friends are Republicans. My dad is a Republican. Just because you're a Republican doesn't mean that you have to support Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is not, a good person. He's done nothing for Florida. He's been there for 3 terms, going for a 4th, and has accomplished nothing for our district. He can't work with his own party, and they won't support him in bills that actually should be passed. And he's written some of bills that have needed to be passed, and nobody will work with him. We need somebody who can actually get something done for our district, and God would never do something intentionally to try to hurt other people. And it doesn't have to be angry. You don't need to be angry. You can call me and tell me what is wrong and tell me how the government is in your way or needs to step up, and I'll do it because it's what I'm supposed to do. It's a job, and I'll actually do the job. And we don't have that right now.
Well, we're looking forward to a very interesting race come November. Hopefully, we'll be able to cruise past all the bullshit and stand on the truth for a while. That would okay.
Cool.
And how can people get a hold of you, contact you, contribute to your campaign? Because I don't know how much the support the Democratic Party is giving you right now, because they tend to pick winners and losers or decide where to throw their money. I'm hoping that they're supporting. But if not, where can people support you?
So we're trying to make our website easier to get to because my first name is spelled strange. So you can go to votejones2022.com, and that will take you to our main website. It has donate links, everything that you need. We're also on, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, not Twitter. But that's a whole other story in and of itself. But yeah, you can email me. I answer my emails. We always are willing to meet with people in the district. Doesn't matter what viewpoint you are. So please reach out, volunteer, donate. It's important that we really mobilize this November because this is an important election.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you've earned your badass badge from Carlos, you are well on your way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate you coming on.
All right. Bye, guys.
Well, that is another one in the can so far as the candidates are concerned. Like I said, we got 1 month, and we have only a couple of Sundays left to go ahead and get folks on who want to come on and speak. And if you are a Republican or a Democrat or independent, Green Party, I think you guys can stay home. Libertarians, we're always welcoming you guys because you're funny as hell. So if you're a candidate and you want to come on, contact us at info@suncoastnormal.org, and we'll get you on so you can go ahead and
we have no
say your
problem
piece.
talking to Republicans.
We have
so
absolutely no problem.
Mark Santiago, so you know.
Yeah, they have a problem on to see us. So
Yeah.
we have invited every single one of them, and we've only got a couple to come on, although we expect that to change because we are a conduit for change here.
It is. You've been doing such a good job getting all these interviews and whatnot. I mean, we still got these interviews in the background with the oh shit, you know what, Gary, I want to apologize because I am not high for this show.
This is
and
no wonder you're disoriented.
I just realized that I missed the music theme for both things. and I noticed that you were like, why aren't you telling them to tell them but we have these what is it, 3 more minute interviews in the backdrop here, and I'm thinking we
in the can,
we need to, is that the term? We've got I'm thinking we need to get together on Thursday or Wednesday or something and put a show together just to get more info about candidates out there.
Yes, and as long as our website is working, which GoDaddy gave us a run for our money this last week, or was it Wix?
It was GoDaddy and that had the issue because the domain's hosted on GoDaddy, but the site is hosted on Wix. But
so who's your GoDaddy?
The site's back up. The site's actually back up already. So
well, then we'll be archiving all the candidate interviews there too, and I'm gonna go ahead and post them on Clarity Pack, so you can go ahead and hear what the candidates have to say if it's one in your district that you can go ahead and vote for.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're going to keep pushing to make sure we have a strong medical program here in Florida that is growing every day. And we want you to be part of the change here in the state of Florida. Here comes our commercial. If you go to suncoastnormal.org of our organization and help make the change happen, you will get a fantastic gold pin, which you can tell folks in the supermarket means that you are part of the movement, or if they're upset, tell them it's a maple leaf and you're Canadian. However you want to work it, that's fine, but you do get a membership card, and of course discounts here over at Chillum CBD.
Wait, that's not a weed leaf in the Canadian flag.
No, they drew it wrong.
God, I need some fucking weed, man.
This is what happens if your mind is constantly that way. You have to function that way. That's the way it works.
Well, we need to legalize, so join Normal. Also, you should check out our podcasts on Facebook, Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon Music, or iTunes. And you can watch us live on your Twitch. And on our website. Our website's back up, suncoastnormal.org.
And we will have more candidates both for the cabinet positions and state legislature and Congress like we did today. And we will help inform you so you can make a decision.
What do you think? Thursday we should do another show.
Thursday sounds fine to me.
Thursday, you want to do it at 11 again?
Yeah, I got a stress test on Monday. I don't know why they even bother testing me for it. I already know I'm stressed.
Are you going to become a Scientologist?
I think so. Although they have a very nice place over in St. Petersburg, Clearwater area.
Yeah, they got the Central here too. But anyways, we'll see.
I hear Tom Cruise hangs out.
We'll see you Thursday. We'll do some Espanol and some regular English candidate spotlights that day.
But we will not be offering salami in our Cuban sandwiches.
No salami. No Italians invented